everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. Woo, let me tell you what, this has been a week. And when I say a week, I mean woo-wee, a week. But I am so excited to be here in this moment, in this time, and just happy to be in communication with everybody or in community with everybody. And yeah, I'm telling you though, how has your week been going? Let me know in the comment section below. I would sure love to know because it has been something. But I am glad to be here, and I'm glad to be sitting here and chilling with my girl Mia, because she's back. Because as you can see the title of the video, we're doing another Let's Chat About It series topic, and I think it's going to be an interesting one. So go ahead and sit back and relax. If you haven't already, pause here, go grab yourself something to partake on, whether it be something to munch on or something to drink, and yeah, come and have a seat and chill, and unpause it and come have a seat and chill. Now for me, I've got my water, but I tell you what, it's been one of those weeks that I could have something a little bit stronger, but we're gonna keep it fresh and breezy, I guess. And so I guess with that, a couple of things, of course. If you are new here, welcome to the family. I'm so glad that you're here. Truly so glad. Have I said that already? That I'm glad that you guys are here, because I am. I mean, this is just a wonderful space, and I just enjoy talking and chatting with y'all, and just I don't know, just so much fun for me. And so yeah, if you are new here, go ahead and subscribe, and be a part of the family. We would love to have you here. And if you enjoy content of all things motivation, inspiration, mentorship, then you're in the right place. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure I said that, because hey, the more the merrier. And of course, if you enjoy all these types of areas and you're enjoying the information that's being shared, the conversation that we're having, it's relatable, give this video a like. It helps with the algorithm, helps get my videos seen. So I would so appreciate it. And yeah, I guess with that, we can go ahead and start the show. Let's go and bring on Mia, shall we?
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing, April? Hello, Motivation Sweet community.
You look really cute. Somebody got her hair did. I love it. You look really nice. How's your day been?
My day has been like, whew. I literally looked up and it was almost 5 o'clock, and I had to ask myself, where did the day go?
That is so funny, because that's what I was sharing with the community just a second ago. Like, this week, woo-wee this week. But I only got a beverage of water. And I said that, they should go out and get themselves something to sip on so they can sit back and relax. And I should have something a little bit stronger, but, we're going to keep it fresh and breezy. So, but, like I said, we're so glad to be here. So glad to have this conversation. I love all the opportunities to speak with you and chat with you, because really nowadays, this is the basis of a lot of our time to be able to spend together. So that's exciting for me. I look forward to these conversations. So yeah, so I guess we're going to go ahead and hit this series rolling, aren't we?
Yes.
Are you ready for it?
Sure.
Okay. So I know that the topic we're going to be discussing here is about conflict resolution. Dun, dun, dun. And basically looking at what the best approach is. Now, I couldn't come up with just one approach, because this is an area that's really in my wheelhouse. It's one that I have had to participate and practice in just in life in general, like many of us have, and also very much directed and specific in my professional career in my past life. So I came up with a few more than just one best approach. How about you?
My wheels have been turning. I looked at this from a personal standpoint, also from a professional standpoint. So I'm looking forward to this conversation tonight.
Good. Because I was going to say the same thing about that. We're definitely on the same boat on this one, because at the end of the day, sometimes the conflict resolution can be different for whether it's professional or personal, or sometimes they could be the same. Ironically, for my approach areas, I believe I can kind of marry both sides. And then I'll kind of share a little bit, about each of them and why I feel that way. And then the next area too, but I'll leave that for just a few minutes. So would you like me to go first?
Sure, take it away.
All right, let's go and kick this show off. Okay, so here we go. Number one, you want to make sure that you're coming to the table with the intention to want to solve the problem, right? I mean, a lot of times, you're seeing, especially nowadays, Lord, I'm so exhausted with the news. But you see a lot of times where people are just not trying to resolve a conflict. They just want to scream, holler, and yell. I don't know why, but it's just, I don't know why. I mean, it's not like we're sitting here under lock and key like this all your life, and all of a sudden you just got a moment. I'm just going to scream my point across to where nobody can hear you. And then at this point, for me, I'm just kind of walking away because I'm dismissing all of that because it's just not good for the spirits. But definitely, if you're trying to come together to come to a resolve about an issue, whether it be personal or professional, you need to come with the intention to actually want to solve the problem. So what are your thoughts on that, Mia?
That's honestly really a great approach to really start off. My background is in process improvement, so I'm always asking the why. One of the things that we do when we're working with organizations is, we have them to drill down to the why. So you want to know what the why is, because that's going to help to open up the how, the what, the who. So you definitely have to start out with the why. And a lot of times the why is the hardest question to answer because people don't know the why. They think they know the why.
The truth.
They think they know the why, but they really don't.
Right.
So for instance, I'll just use something really simple. The problem could be that maybe, my electric bill has been extremely high this month. But when I really drill down and I ask, well, why is my electric bill really high this month? It could be because I just purchased a new air conditioning unit that's, pulling more energy. And then, if I ask the question, well, why is the air conditioning unit the reason why my bill is so high? Then I could drill down even more and say, well, I've been tampering with the temperature settings. They haven't been consistent.
Right.
And I keep drilling down and I find out that the why really isn't what I thought the why was. So that's very important.
Yeah, it really is, because how can you resolve a problem if you don't really know what the problem is? I mean, it kind of sets the whole diaphragm of direction of what to do and how to do it if you don't know. So that's a really good point that you make, especially like in customer service. When you come with an issue, it'd be kind of nice to have an understanding of what your issue is instead of kind of coming up to the person and expecting them to figure that out for you.
That happens a lot in customer service, and it's really funny, but it's funny, but it's not funny because being a customer, I know how that feels. I just want my situation resolved. So for instance, yesterday is really funny. I was trying to go into this particular website and get some things resolved in this website. I couldn't get the website figured out. And so I called the help desk, which is what they said to do.
Right.
I tried really hard to be nice to the person on the other end, but I was so frustrated until I found myself just getting louder and louder on the phone because they were not resolving my problem. But it wasn't that they weren't resolving my problem. I wasn't telling them what the problem was.
Right.
So,
you know what? That is so brave of you to be transparent and admit that. You see, that is such a wonderful thing.
I was flustered. I've been working with this website for about 2 hours. I wasn't getting any resolution, and I just wanted it to stop, period. So as a customer, a lot of times your emotions and all these things happen, and you're not really able to communicate as clearly as you probably would, as rationally as you would if those things weren't happening. But then from the business standpoint or the recipient standpoint, you're like, well, okay, I can't understand what's going on here. There's no efficient communication happening, so we're not going to go anywhere.
Oh, that's really good, though. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes I think when people have to admit an issue or admit maybe that they're not really helping as much as they could get, to get that resolved. Think that it just means all of a sudden that you're a bad person or it means it's your fault. No, it doesn't mean any of those things. Help us to help you kind of thing is how and I look at things. Now, if I'm telling you something and I need a resolve for something, and because I'm a communicator, so therefore I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the dot to the dot to the dot. And if you are like really trying not to, or kind of passing the buck, or if this is your area of expertise and you're playing that I don't know game and you really don't know, then this is when I have my issue. And then I'm like, okay, well, we need to elevate who's the next person I could talk to, because at this point I am like shutting down. And when I shut down, that's not always going to be a pleasant interaction for me, because then I'm getting frustrated. And so it's just but I just think it's great that you just like admit that, like, it's okay, like, the world's not going to come to an end. So now I will ask you this. Now, we talked about that in a professional setting. You talked about it in a customer service related situation. How do you think that is when it's in a personal relationship? Now, you can choose which personal relationship you're talking about, but how do you feel that plays into that arena?
It honestly, it's pretty similar, because there has to be effective communication on both parties.
So, and active listening.
Active listening is very important.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times, even in personal relationships, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think that either party is really getting anywhere. So let me see. I can give a personal example. Let's say about a week ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I could not find the remote control in my upstairs bedroom. And so I shared with my fiance, hey, I can't find the remote control. And he said, well, I don't know where it is. And I, said, well, you use the TV more than I do, so you should know where it is. Right. And we kind of went back and forth about it. And it was kind of like a, no, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. So we weren't really coming to any type of resolution.
Right.
A week goes by. We're sitting at church. A week goes by. We still couldn't find this remote control.
Wow.
A week goes by. We're sitting in church on Sunday.
Right.
He opens up his Bible, and the remote control is sitting in his Bible. And he taps me on the arm. I'm telling you. He taps me on the arm, and he said, look at this. And I looked down. And I said, is that the remote we were looking at? We're in church. Is that the remote? He said, yes. I said, oh, my gosh.
Oh, that is hilarious.
So yeah, but initially I was pointing fingers at him. He said, no, it's not me. It had to be you. No, it's not me. You use the TV more than I do. No, well, you do watch TV, and the last time I remember you had it. So we weren't resolving the problem. Needless to say, now we couldn't find the remote. The boxes that we use couldn't work right. So it was just it just kind of escalated.
Wow. And it was in the Bible the whole time. Well, at least the Bible's being read, because that's that's a good thing. There's a positive there, right?
But who would have thought to look there? I mean, literally, we tore the room up. We tore the room up. We were looking under the bed. We were looking behind the dressers. Who would have thought to look there? And still, I don't know how it got there. He said, well, you must have put it there. I said, no, you must have put it there. So it was, we went back and forth with that.
But it's hilarious. But I honestly think that probably makes God happy, because that means somebody is reading the Bible. So clearly there's a message in that.
Yeah, but honestly, I mean, that's kind of a funny example, but it really boils down to, you really have to communicate. You really have to hear the other person.
Yeah,
and so we were blaming each other. No, it's not your fault, it's my fault. So somebody's got to take accountability. First of all, somebody's got to man up, woman up, and take accountability, and then you got to be willing to work together. So if maybe we'd have been willing to work together, then we would have
found it faster,
places, and found it a lot faster. But we weren't doing that. I was blaming him, you was blaming me. We weren't coming together, so we had to go a week, without the remote.
Separate corners for a week. That's amazing. Yeah. That is amazing. That's a good example. Okay, so my number 2 is being open to the other's point of view. You got to be open, right? You got to be willing and able to listen. And that's why I mentioned about active listening. Mia mentioned about communication and effective communication, because you could be communicating all day long and not be effective, right? And effective doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be an end result that is plausible, for closure. It could just mean that you're at least working together. You're trying to come together to a point. So, it doesn't have to be perfect communication, but it does need to be effective communication. There is a difference. So, yeah, definitely got to be open to others' points of view. I'd also say that assessing all points, yours and the others. So I'm kind of connecting that a little bit with being open to the other's point of view, because I think you also need to understand your own. You know how you sit there and this happens, I think, a lot in personal relationships, where you're just arguing just because you just want to be arguing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to back down. And so, how you started talking, and look, I think we all made, well, not me that often, because I don't do that very often. And I would tell the truth if I did, because I do get on people who do that. But how they just be talking and to be like nonsensical, like it doesn't make any sense. And then, but that as you're speaking and you're saying all this stuff, what's coming out of your mouth doesn't make any sense to you. So how do you expect it to make any sense to the person? So if you can't put together your own thoughts and ideas of what the problem is or what your issues are, and coherently address those with them, and then coherently express those, and not listening to them, you're not coming to the table with anything, but just a bunch of hollering and screaming, and a lot of times you see that a lot, in personal relationships, and gaslighters and narcissists, and all those. So you got to be able to come together. Do you have another one before I go to my next one?
I was going to say that not always wanting to be right. You don't have to
be a right fighter.
Correct. You don't always have to go into a situation, wanting to be right. It's okay if
you may want to.
Yeah, but it's okay not to be right. There's some people that have a problem with not being right all the time. It's my way or the highway.
Yeah, and that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, so unfortunately, when you have that wall up, it prevents that effective communication. It prevents that active, listening from happening, and you will never get to a conflict resolution, because in your mind, there's probably not even any conflict, because you think that what you did was right.
And the only conflict is that I'm having to explain this to you.
Right. Yeah.
I tell you, and you're right. There's lots of people that are like that. At the end of the day, look, there's some people that you can listen to and give really good advice and have a real good way of looking at things and sharing things. Doesn't always mean that they may be right for you, but that they may tend to, through whether it's experience or just know how to assess a situation decently. I think that when you're the person that everyone always comes to, sometimes you may get a little bit of complex, maybe not, I don't know. But I the ones with the right fighters, I think, is really where that's at, that they could, wrong and strong, as my mom would say. It doesn't matter what the situation is. I'm going to say what it is, and this is how I feel it is, and it doesn't matter what you say, and I'm going to go to the mat, because I got to commit. So whether or not you are wrong in what you're saying, which we see a lot of, this is why it frustrates me about the news a lot, because you see a lot of that kind of interaction. And I don't know, well, there's so many reasons for it. I would say one is for sure, obviously they don't feel, that person doesn't feel like they're hurt in their own life. There has to be some sense of something there that's not right to, be in that kind of way. And feel like that's the only way that you can get yourself heard. I think that you might want to start rethinking some other approaches, because people are not going to listen to you. They're just going to dismiss you, and you're going to be more dismissed and more separated from the crowd, so to speak, if you feel that kind of bum rushing and berating is going to get you what you want, right? So but yeah, some good old right fighters, boy. I tell you, like, well, you said this, and no, I said that, and da 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 da. Like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but no, I'm right. But you just did this, and you think that's right? Yes, it's right. Well, this person did this. What about it with them? Well, no, if they do it, it's wrong. They can be doing the same kind of action, but I can justify it all day long. But that person does it? Oh no, they're wrong. They're just wrong, and they're gonna be crucified for it. So Yeah, that's a really good point about the fact that you don't have to feel like you have to be right, even though you may have a sense of that, right? That's why you have a conflict, because you think one way and that person thinks another way. But you don't have to come to the table if you're looking for resolution in that same space. So yeah, I don't know why I feel like the light's like darkening on my side, and I've got this what do you call these things, this ring light and everything, but I don't know, maybe I need to change the blind up. Oh well. Everybody see me by now, I've been on here so much, so but yeah, it's just kind of crazy though, but you're right about that. Okay, so let's see. Oh, here's another one. You got to be empathetic. Yeah, you got to be empathetic, you know. You got to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
That's true.
You got to see how they feel from their standpoint, even though if you might not agree with it, maybe just try to hear what they're saying and then put yourself in that position. If the things that they were saying to you was happening, you know, it was happening to them, if that was happening to you, how would you feel? You know? So you got to be empathetic. You got to be able to just say, okay, let me just step out of my situation for a minute. You know, I often like the bird's eye view concept, or, you know, from just, you know, higher space and time, kind of out of body type situation where you can kind of see down and, you know, perspective when you review things from a bird's eye view versus when you're actually automatically in the situation. So, you know, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
You know, I think that's a really good one. That's a really strong one, because sometimes you don't want to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You don't want to feel what they're feeling. You don't want to go through what they're going through. And because if you do, then you'll see things a totally different way. I know I've been in situations where I've had people challenge me in some things, whether it be personal or professional. And I had to take a step back and say, well, you know, let me look at it from this person's perspective. And once I started kind of walking through the scenario and saying, well, if I was them, what would I have done? And I probably would have ended up doing the same thing they did.
Right.
So it was kind of like, okay, well, what are we really going back and forth about then? So definitely that empathy is so important, because, you know, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody knows everything. There's nobody that's perfect. And so, you know, if you can remember that, I think that will go a long way.
That's true. That's true. You know, and to my end on that point, I was also thinking, and not assuming, because the way how you were saying that, how you frame that with the empathy section, but the way you frame that, it kind of brings to mind, you know, not to just assume the worst, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just, you know, don't automatically, oh, I know they're doing this, or, oh, I know this is going to be this, or this is what they're going to say, or this is how they're going to feel. You know, really take the time to listen.
That's good. That's good, because people go through things that maybe they don't always share. I know. I remember one time, this was in a work situation, but there was a gentleman that I worked with, and it seemed like he was always being vindictive. It seemed like every time he had an opportunity to do something that was kind of against the grain, he was doing it, and it really frustrated me. And it frustrated some of my other teammates as well. And we were like, man, what's up with this dude? Why is he always like that? Why is he always doing that? Well, come to find out, his wife was getting ready to have a baby. He was the only one working, and they really weren't prepared. So he was really trying to get a promotion. So he could get additional income into the house before the baby got there, and kind of, you know, set himself up so financially they would be more secure. But you know, we didn't know that. We thought he was brown nosing, that he was just trying to stir up trouble, that he wanted us to look bad, but really he was trying to make himself look good, because he thought that was a good way for him to get promoted. Now, perhaps if he had maybe asked for help, you know, that's a good one too. You know, being able to ask for help, that maybe someone could have helped him to do things a little bit differently for, you know, him to be able to progress professionally and even with his personal situation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because, you know, if he had, maybe it did open up a little bit. You never know what kind of nuggets he could have gotten that would have been helpful for him. And then y'all wouldn't have an issue with the conflict, and it wouldn't have nothing to be resolved. So yeah, that's true.
true.
Sometimes people, I know trust is a hard thing, and especially of late, to trust other people with, certain things. I do remember a time where that didn't seem to be so difficult to do. But you're always worried about an angle. You're always worried about something that you're going to say or something person going to do, and it's really sad, the state of how we've got to that point, even in the world. That you cannot just have a conversation without worrying about someone backstabbing you and telling all your business or changing things around or using things that you share with them against you later on. So it's just, it would be so nice if we can get back to a place like that. I'm hopeful, but I'm hopeful, but yeah, it's gonna take a lot. It's gonna take a lot. A lot of accountability for a lot of people who don't want to have accountability. The problem is that accountability is gonna come. You may not know when it's gonna come if you're not proactively, putting yourself in the mode to have that, to do that, to walk in that, so you can get to a place of resolve and you can get to a place of, conflict free, if you will, because consequences come. Whether you think so or not, and I always say that once those consequences come, even if certain people are not able to see that happening, it's going to happen, and you as a person are going to know why it is happening. I just feel that way very strongly about that. So yeah, definitely, that's really good. Okay, so the next one I came up with was be firm with your position, but be willing to adjust in collaboration and or compromise. And there's actually 3 steps that you could deal with, and I'm thinking off the top of my head. It's either collaboration, compromise, or pretty much agree to disagree. So but I want to talk about the agree to disagree in another vein here, because that's not going to resolve per se in the way that I would like it with a bow on top. So so I'm going to change the rules on that. But yeah, I think you should be firm in what your situation is. And I think that you should not ever feel silenced in your voice. I think that you should let your issues and concerns be known, because just as we're saying that these are the things that you yourself would want to possibly look at as avenues for resolve, you want that in return. So I do feel that, not being too wishy-washy about your point, because, sometimes you may be right. You may be the situation should be going in the direction that you say, or maybe whatever you're talking about may be the right thing. So I don't think you should back down for the purpose of just giving somebody all of what they want, or because you don't want the conflict, because that's not resolution. That's only going to turn into resentment and build up in you. So I definitely say, make sure that you are firm with saying, what it is that is on your mind. Speak your mind. Do not allow yourself to be silenced. And if you have difficulties in speaking your mind and saying how you feel, then you want to start working on those things in your personal development area. So whether it be working on confidence, self-esteem, those things, maybe over shyness. Some of us, deal with stage fright in different avenues, whereas in other areas you may be just fine. So you make an assessment of where you're having difficulties with, and then work on those in your personal development way. Because if you're walking around in existence where you're not able to speak your mind and say what you need to say, and can feel comfortable in saying it, even if it's not necessarily the most popular situation, you're going to find that it's going to come out in other ways that might not be the most progressive or correct manner. So yeah, definitely don't let yourself get silenced. Do not let your voice get silenced. Speak your mind. Say what you have to say. There is no one on this planet that's better than anybody and has any more entitled right to share their opinions more than you.
Absolutely.
So yeah. And, just definitely be willing to, at the same time, when you're listening to the other point of views and you're coming together for resolve, be prepared to be in the mode of whether you're going to compromise, where I get a little something, you get a little something, or I'm going to do collaboration and we're going to work together where maybe all things can be met in that. Yeah. So what's your thoughts?
I totally agree with that. And one of the things that I had put down in my little notes is not to be resistant to change, because when you have conflict resolution, there's going to be some parts of that where it requires one or both parties to change in some way.
Yes.
It could be just a little bit, or it could be a whole lot.
Yes.
But when you resist the change, then that's going to prolong the resolution.
Right.
So it's important that, you go into it understanding, well, like you pointed out, there may be some give and take, but there might mean I have to take a different approach altogether. Am I okay with that? Because some people, they hold on really tight to their position. They hold on really tight to their way of doing things. And I'm not going to do it. I've always done it this way, and I'm not going to do it any other way. This is what it's going to be.
Right.
Okay. Maybe that worked for a time.
Yeah.
But now we're trying to do something different. You're going to have to go with the flow.
Yeah, that's true.
And that goes for me too. I've been in situations where, okay, I'm comfortable doing this way. I've always done it this way. It's worked out this way.
Yeah.
And then someone comes in, fresh ideas, fresh new thoughts. It's like, hey, let's do it like this. I'm like, why? Who is this person? And why? Okay. Why are you even talking right now in my face? Why? But we have to be open to change. I'm glad I could bring some joy to your life.
Oh, it's true though.
Open to resisting change. I have a lot of work. I have a lot of work examples. I remember there was this one project I was working on. And we literally, when you're in the process improvement world, a lot of times people see us and they close the door because fired. I mean, literally, they think that, okay, if these people come in, somebody's going to get fired. Yeah. That's the first thing they say.
Yeah.
And I've had people ask me, am I going to get fired?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've had people.
I don't
know. Are you performing? I mean, I don't know. I didn't know that. But, all jokes aside, people get very insecure about, how they do things when they see other people coming in to resolve conflict.
Yes.
Because that's really a large part of my job is to resolve conflict.
Right.
And so this one project I was working on, this gentleman had been in this position for, 20 some years.
He ain't trying to hear nothing.
Absolutely. He was like, I don't know who this lady is. I don't know what she's trying to do. I'm not having. He would agree to no meetings.
Wow.
Emails. I was just like, oh my goodness. So
right.
I didn't know what to do. And it was really challenging because I had to get this project done, and he was really preventing things from progressing. So long story short, I ended up talking to him and finding out that he was resistant to change. But when I was able to convince him that this change is going to help you because it's going to benefit your team, you're going to be more efficient, things are going to get done quicker, you're going to be able to communicate with other teams more effectively. So when I was able to show him the benefits, he was open.
Yes.
And then that conflict resolution began to slowly dwindle down. So you got to be open to change.
That's interesting. So he was looking at, you have to try to find his pain points, and he's trying to look at it, what's in it for me. Yeah. So you're effectively answering his why, because his why wasn't probably, in his case, not just about why are we doing these things, is why I'm not interested. So, unless you can come up with a real good reason, and I don't care what such and such over there told you to do over here. This is how we do it here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's sometimes you do that, and you got to put on other hats too sometimes in those kind of positions, and I'm sure you have. Especially if the goal is to be a certain way and someone else is directing that goal, but you did have to also make him feel comfortable, in the sense of that, well, nothing's being taken from him.
Absolutely.
It's being added to him. And everybody, look, we all like to not have something taken from us. We want something that's going to make our life easier. And then in his case, in that situation, it free him up to do other things, maybe more efficient and better things, even in his position. That would probably make him maybe happier in his position. 20 years, we're at this point, you're just waiting for retirement at that point. So
pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
He ain't trying to rock no boat. Let the next person get it, So yeah, that's a really good one though. Don't you just love process improvement?
It's fun.
It can be, because I can see that being the case, and a lot of times you're doing that in certain positions, especially in managerial positions as well, and maybe at different degrees. But you're trying to, well, at least that should be your goal, is to try to streamline things to make them more effectively work and more efficiently work, whether it's to also be financially more sound. And that doesn't mean that you have to necessarily detriment another area. You're just trying to do things to make it better all the way around. So I'm sure there's a lot of conflict resolutions in that place. Hey, by the way, I see the top of your shirt there. Why don't you show us what you got there? It looks really cute. I see beautiful on there.
Oh yeah, it's just a little shirt that I have. One of my friends actually makes shirts. So she made me a shirt for my birthday. And this was just a little shirt that says
oh, that's so cute.
Is a cancer.
He's a cancer.
Yeah.
Oh,
so my birthday's in June. My birthday's in June. So this little lady on my shirt has all of these wonderful things about her being a cancer. So yeah, it's cute. I like this.
That is so cute. I like that. It's gold, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks very cute. I just like that. Okay. So, wasn't trying to embarrass you, but I just like the
shirt. As you were sharing that though, I thought about like on a personal level, because I know, the Motivation Suite community is like, okay, me, that's cool, but I got some issues with my man. I got some issues with my woman. I got some issues in my house. So can you bring it a little bit into where I can relate to this? And, I thought about as far as resisting change. Right now I'm engaged, but the person that I'm engaged to, there was a lot of change in our relationship because both of us had been married before. Both of us were kind of in our own way of doing things, and for us to have to transition into essentially open ourselves up to what this person likes to do, how this person likes to do things, there was a little bit of resistance. Can I say just a lot?
Just a little bit
in some areas. So yeah, definitely, there was some bumping of the heads initially. He did things one way, I did things another way. I didn't care for some of the things that he did. For instance, he is a stickler on how he folds towels.
Oh, okay.
I fold towels one way, I get it done, put it up. But he has a certain way the towels have to be folded, have to be put up. And it literally drove me bonkers because I'm like, dude, I can't fold towels like that. I'm just trying to get them up on the shelf. So we literally have arguments about how the towels are being folded.
Right.
So, just little things like that can really blow up and fester into bigger things if you don't, deal with it at the root and find out what's going on and where those differences are and really come to some type of middle ground, as we've been kind of talking about. So I think, everything we've talked about has been really great, but I think it really, for me, it really goes back to communication. You gotta communicate. You gotta talk to each other. You gotta be willing to listen and hear the other person's side. Because if you don't, what might seem very small and very insignificant can blow up, and you can let it sit and fester, and you can get frustrated and bitter, and before you know, you're about ready to bite somebody's head off because you've been holding back what this person has been doing day after day, month after month, year after year. You gotta talk. You gotta open up. You gotta share. Hey, you're doing this. I don't like this. I'm not comfortable with this. You do some things that I don't understand why you're doing it. And if we're gonna have this relationship together, we need to work it out. So I always go back to that communication, because if you don't talk to your partner, your significant other, whatever you got going on, and if you don't, it's gonna really be miserable. You're gonna be miserable. Yeah. And I was in a relationship where we weren't talking. When I was married before, we had gotten to a point where we weren't talking about our differences. and we became separated. It was like we were in a house and we were strangers in a house because we weren't talking.
Right.
And so you don't want to get into the danger of that happening. So, you know, again, if you're in a situation where you're having some conflicts, you got to be willing to resolve it. You got to be willing to come to the table. It might be uncomfortable. It might hurt. You know, you might have to change. You might have to see yourself in a different perspective. But if you don't resolve it, you're going to wish that you did.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and that's for those relationships that you're wishing to stay in. You know, because there are situations that maybe if things are too difficult and you can't come to a certain positioning that it will move you forward, then maybe sometimes you may need to look at the validity of that relationship and if it any longer serves your purpose in life. And unfortunately, all relationships are not meant to last forever, even if that is the intent. You know, when you talk about like marriage, for more of a greater example, because you're making a commitment to someone that you hope in the next however many years of life or forever, it's going to be okay. So you're making this huge decision based off of a very small amount of time when you've got this whole entire lifetime, if you are so fortunate and lucky to have, to be together. So, you know, it definitely marriage itself and long-term relationships, they are work just like anything else. And if you want to be successful at it, you know, you really have to have a good grasp and handle on how you resolve conflict. I mean, it's just going to be a lesson in that all the time. And you're going to be repeating that lesson, even if you're getting it right at some cases, because, you know, there is no perfect relationship. There's no perfect union. You know, and sometimes some of those small things, like you said about the towels. Now, to me personally, that sounds like a small situation, right? But for him, that it's a big deal, and therefore it becomes an issue. Now, for me, leaving the toilet seat up is a big deal. Now, for my husband, it may not be. He may forget every now and again. I'm a girl. It matters. So, you know, and yeah, we would have, you know, conversations about it. So, you know, you have to keep that into perspective too. And sometimes be able to kind of think, well, why is this so important? You know, what is it? And, you know, sometimes people don't realize that when they do certain things that may seem small, but bother the other person, that it may make that other person feel like they're discounted, not important enough, not respected enough, not loved enough, you know, and it could be the smallest of things to you, but maybe not to them.
Right.
So, you know, communication is hugely important, and being able to conflict resolve is just as important, because you know, we don't come together necessarily. I mean, maybe there's some better relationships that I don't know of, you know, that doesn't take a lot of years and a lot of effort to get to a point where you are kind of just really this well-oiled machine, you know, and some relationships never get there, you know. But the ones I think that are that way, and they seem so lovey-dovey and ooh, everything's so great, and they've been together for a long time, they've probably seen some things. They probably have dealt with some things, and they've had a lot of empathy. They've had a lot of listening. They've had to go through things. They've had to fight it out. You know, they've had to maybe sometimes just, I'm going my separate corners, all those things. So yeah, you know, it's just, no relationship is going to be perfect. It is going to take the time, but if it's worth it to you and it's one that you should be in, then you're going to, you know, make the effort. I mean, you make the effort on a job, right? So, you know, so, you know.
That's true. That's so true.
So, and the relationship, if it's meant to be, is probably gonna last longer than that job, as far as the course of your lifetime. Because, you know, sometimes after about 5 or 10 years, you're ready to go. You know, like I had a friend of mine, this is kind of sidetracked a little bit, but I just thought it was so interesting. I don't know if she would say this now because her husband's no longer with us. But, you know, she literally told me that this was her second husband and that she gave him a certain amount of time that she was going to be with him. Like straight up. She said, I give you 20 years and that's it. And I was like, wow, 20 years. She goes, yeah, because you don't need to have all of my life.
Oh my goodness.
So what are you going to do at 20 years? You're just going to say, oh, it's over? I mean, and she was like really serious about that. She said, yeah, I can't be letting you have all my life. So her first husband, I think he made like 5 to 10 years. And she's a little bit senior in age, right? But a real feisty and, you know, get around kind of girl, you know, young at heart, all that kind of stuff, right? And very young in spirit. But she literally said, yeah, I told him he had like this amount of time. It apparently didn't matter what was going on at that end. part ways because I got to, live my life, and do something else. And I thought that was the strangest thing. But then, they end up both having, situations that took place that that you would hope that who you're married to could be there to help you through. And they both had them, and they both were helping each other. And he did a lot of helping her in a lot of ways when she was having a hard time. And then unfortunately, he ended up passing. And I just wonder if she would think, and I don't know if he, as morbid as this may sound, I don't know if he made it the 20 years that she was saying that he would have only. And I just thought that is just so like sobering to me. And I wonder if she ever thinks about that. Like, yeah, you don't want to conflict resolve,
Yeah.
That in her mind, like, no, I'm not going to be interested. And I'm just like, that's crazy to me. But to each his own, I guess, right? But yeah, that I just had to say that because it's like the wildest thing that, and I love her. Yeah, she's funny as all get out, but I think she was really serious. So.
Wow, that's interesting.
I mean, she was a straight face when she told me, but so you're sitting there like, no, you don't mean that. She's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, wow. Okay, so that's crazy. All right, so let's see. Ooh, and then the last one I think is the best approach to resolving conflict I came up with was being honest and transparent and honoring through action and participation whatever it is you decided to do, your part in it to resolve the issue. So you can't say, okay, here's the game plan. We're going to do this. I'm going to do this. You're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And then turn around and not keep your end of the bargain.
Right.
I mean, then we're back to conflict again and ain't nobody gotten resolved. So yeah, and that is really something that can happen obviously in the professional setting and in the personal setting too, right? You can't just be saying, I'm gonna do this, yeah, whatever, and then don't do it. And then if the other person is constantly, accepting that, then basically it just becomes hyperbole. I'm just, I'll say whatever you want to hear. I'll wait till you stop yelling and screaming at me. Once you're done, it'll be okay. 5 minutes from now, you'll be fine. Bad precedents to set. So you must honor the action and participation that you said you would do to help resolve that issue. That's very important. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know. Do men do it more than women? I don't know.
Oh.
I would like to know in the chat, y'all. I mean, let me know. What do you think? Who does it more often? I would be curious. It becomes the spouses. Who do you think does it more often? Who does more of the kind of, okay, yeah, sure, right. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do this and then don't do it. So yeah, that would be kind of fun to know. Drop that in the comment section. And of course, we've talked about a lot of things here in this portion of the best approaches. So, if there's some of these approaches you agree with, go ahead and put a shout out down there for us. And then if there's other approaches that you feel are helpful for conflict resolution, we would like to know that too. So drop that down as well. And if neither one, then just, hey, at least tell us how you're doing. That you're here. Hey, So sometimes you're just here for the party. And I understand, and hope you'll grab the lesson while you're at it, So yeah, that's just, those are some of the things that I thought were really good areas. And I think the items that you shared also, Mia, are really, really helpful as well. And I think that with all of those nuggets, somehow you'll be able to resolve a conflict. Because if you can't figure out something to do out of all things that we just shared, then you don't really resolve that conflict. You sure don't. You want to stay in that indignation of whatever it is you say it, because that was just a whole lot of stuff that we gave out. And definitely a whole lot of food for thought. So yeah, especially if you're kind of headbutting, with someone and you're looking for ways to just kind of come together, then, maybe these things will kind of help in that. Really important. I know that, like, I'm into astrology, and apparently we're in a period right now with Leo and something else going on, because we're in the season of Leo as far as astrology goes. And it's, for some people, it's going to really place itself in with conflict and you having to kind of state who your opinion of things and your feelings of things. And so you may need to watch how you come across, and not be hurtful in that. So apparently we're in that space and time. So, this is kind of a inadvertently perfect topic for the period here, if you're into that kind of stuff, which I am. So, look, I look for all things that are helpful in life. So, and that are tangible, practical to some degree as well. We're not going off into Sahara doing nothing, It needs to make sense. I need some results. But I'm open to certain things. I'll take a listen. I may not take everything, but I'll take a listen. But so I also thought it would be kind of cool though. Well, before I jump into that, man, do you have any others that you think of for best approaches to accomplish?
Honestly, I had one that really kind of ties into what you were just talking about.
Okay.
One of the things I had jotted down was countermeasures, which is kind of a big word.
Yeah,
but
I like it though.
It really taps into what you were just talking about, because again, we have to remember this is conflict resolution. Right. We're looking to resolve it. So in order for that conflict not to come up again, fingers crossed, there needs to be some type of countermeasure so that if you see the warning signs, if there are things that starts to trigger those areas, those sensitivities to come back up again, you need to be able to recognize it and to be able to deal with it immediately so that it doesn't blow up.
I love that.
Yeah, especially when it comes to personal relationships. I know we touched a little bit on, like husband, wife, significant other relationships. Knowing your
family
partner,
relationships too.
Knowing your partner and even your friends. We have what we call love languages, things that really make us who we are. So you gotta know that person that you're dealing with. If it's a personal relationship, you want to know that person's triggers, and if you know that person is going to get upset at certain things, or maybe doesn't feel comfortable, maybe they shy away from certain things, then maybe you want to be a little bit sensitive to how you approach it, because that might get you right back to where you started at. So, and whatever you guys agree upon to do, stick to it. I think you touched upon that. It's really about that accountability, sticking to it, seeing it all the way through. Maybe it might even mean going back and checking, is this something that we want to do differently now that we've grown, that we've learned from this? Is this what we still want to continue to do when it comes to this area? So that's pretty much what I thought about.
That's really good. And, speaking of that element there, evaluating, it's okay to do an evaluation from time to time, make sure that whatever you decide upon is still working in the current time. And, we'll carry it through. And if you got to tweak, then tweak. If you got to pivot, then pivot. But, having that broader element together, if it's something that could possibly change from time to time, it's a really good thing to go back and just make sure, check it in on each other, Is everything still good over here? There was this one thing I heard. There was this one couple, and they were in reality TV. And I'm gonna make sure I get this right. I think what they were doing is, like, each week they would come together, like every Sunday, and have a list of all the things that kind of bothered them throughout the week. And it was supposed to be a way of speaking about it without being into a big blow up argument, but actually coming together and say, hey, this thing happened on this day and this really bothered me. Can we talk about this? And then it was supposed to be a situation where they can kind of have this conversation and then look at ways that they can kind of mitigate to not have those same issues, in the next week. And then they would do this every week. Now, they said that worked. I think it will depend on, what your issues are. So like if infidelity was an issue, I don't think that's something you're going to resolve by doing that. But, if it's a situation like, I don't know, maybe you leaving the toilet seat up or leaving your clothes around, or maybe you snapped at me and when you shouldn't have, and you can have a conversation. Now, it does require both people to be mature in their conversation. So, because, some people, like, you can still have those issues with your right fighters, or people play like, oh, they're doing that, kind of thing. And darn well you did that. Darn well you said that, but I thought it was a really nice way. It worked for them. I don't know if they still do it. But I thought it was a nice way that they came together and they started doing this in the beginning of their relationship and kind of carried it on throughout their dating relationship and then maybe into their marriage.
Okay.
So sometimes finding some kind of rhythm that works for you is a good thing too, because that to me seems that they're trying to do things that are preemptive,
Right.
trying to be proactive in that situation
Mm.
before things get to a boiling point, like you shared about things
Yeah.
blowing up when you don't address things, and like I shared about resentment that will follow. So this
Right.
allows them to say, look, you say what you need to say, I'm not going to get upset about it. Just say what it is, and vice versa. You have to be mature in your communicational skills
Mhm.
to be able to have that conversation. And that's not always easy. Sometimes it's not, depending on what the issue is, and there may have been some times where they would have had situations that they may have had a table.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was kind of interesting that was
Mm-hmm.
a way that they were doing to try to beef up their relationship and keep it together. So, and they're still together with multiple kids, so obviously it works. But yeah, okay. So I think that was really good approach on things that would help to resolve conflict. So of course, whenever because I like to explore things, right? So we have one side of things, so then I have to flip it on its head, and let's talk about what happens when compromise or any of the things that we talked about isn't able to happen. And I think so. I came up with three of them, and I'll just kind of run through them, real quick. And me and you feel free to kind of share additional if you have additional or whatever your thoughts are on this. And community, I would like to hear from you guys too. So let's help each other out here. So throw your ideas in there too in the comment section. Um, so my first one was, you may have to walk away from the situation. Sometimes that might be what it is. And I think that a lot of times that is really prevalent. Well, I'll say this. It can be more effective if you're in a workplace. I think it's more prevalent in your personal life though. Because I think it's so much easier to just kind of just throw your hands up in your personal life because there's no accountability outside of you and that person, right? But if you're in a workplace setting, you've got other people that is watching you. You've got supervisors, management, coworkers, all of that. So your demeanor and how you walk away from something is going to be different. Usually, if you walk away in a personal situation, you might be more in a huff. You could be that when you're personal, but if you're a professional individual, then you may just say, look, I don't think we're getting anywhere at this moment, but we should take some time. Kind of cooler heads will prevail. Let's kind of break and come back together. So I do think sometimes if you're not in a situation that compromise can happen, you just might have to walk away. Now, in the personal element, it may mean that you may have to walk away from a relationship. That is quite possible, because if something is not working on a continuum, you have to make a decision if this is something that you want to continue to doing the rest of your life. And if you have made the assessment and said, no, I don't want to keep doing this the rest of my life, and I don't see any way out of that situation, then you're going to have to look at other adjudicating things to get yourself to a point that you can find some resolution. And sometimes for some people, for some situations, resolution may be walking away in that moment or away, period. But you have to make that determination for yourself, for your personal being. But make sure you're starting to ask those questions of you. So that was one of them. And my second one was elevate if it's in a professional sector. So, of course, if you're having an issue conflict wise at your level with whoever you're talking to, it's just not coming together, then either you're going through a complaint process, if that's what's happening, or if not have to get into a complaint process per se, but you want to get someone to kind of mediate or someone to take up to the next level, say, look, this is the problem we're having and this is not working, blah, 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 then you may need to do that in a professional setting. So sometimes if a conflict cannot be resolved between you guys in that moment, maybe having to elevate it would be the better way to go. And then lastly, I said, sometimes you may have to agree to disagree. And now the dangers of agreeing to disagree it can mean that issue will come back again. So I think the minimal amount of times that you do that, the better. That's just my personal opinion. Because I think if you keep just disagreeing or agreeing to disagree every single time about every single issue, eventually you're going to start having resentment and anger about a situation that's going to spill over into your feelings about that person. Because sometimes in that motion, though, you could be evaluating if this is the right person for you to be with. If you're in that mode that you can never agree with something, it's always just easier to just throw your hands up and say, you know what, let's just agree, disagree. All the time, eventually you're going to stop talking to each other. Eventually you're going to just find other people to actually talk to. And that could be detrimental to your relationship. If you're going a platonic way or a romantic way. So, that is an option. And yes, I think that used specifically and used seldomly, it can be helpful,
Mm,
because maybe you might need to table a situation and come back later. But I don't think
mm,
you want to. I don't feel it's wise. This is my opinion, for sure. I do not feel it's wise to stay in that hamster wheel of that way of being, because eventually you're just going to stop talking to each other, and you're going to
mm,
stop with each other, because at the end of the day, you're always disagreeing, and you're always agreeing to do that.
mm.
So those are my three on what you may want to do if there isn't resolution that is coming soon enough. So, what's your thoughts, man?
Actually, I think those are good areas to kind of look at from that perspective. I wanted to just really quickly, as far as the agree to disagree,
Mm-hmm.
um, elevate and walking away. I think it all really boils down to choice.
Yeah.
Um, and we're talking about conflict resolution. So the ultimate choice is that you want to resolve this.
Mm-hmm.
You want this to end. You want this to stop. You want this to
Mm-hmm.
be a thing of the past. You want to get to the root of it and
Mm-hmm.
pull that root out. So if you pull the root out of something, it's not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about agree to disagree,
Mm-hmm.
and I know there have been times that I've done that. I'm
Yeah.
sure all of us have done that.
All of it, yeah.
But is that really conflict resolution? Okay, that's
I
my,
think that
that's
it
my
is if it's in that moment, because sometimes you're not going to be able to resolve situation. So that's why I say it is. But I don't think
Yeah.
it's a place that you should stay in.
Yeah,
Because
I
if you're in
think
it,
I think we got to be really careful with using that as a
exactly.
crutch.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people may, situations may, because you just don't,
Yeah.
it depends on the situation, and there's some things that are really hard to talk about. I mean, really hard to talk about, and it's easy to say, okay, I agree, disagree.
Yeah.
Because you're starting to walk on some toes and really tap into some areas,
Yeah.
and you're kind of maybe not sure how the other person's going to react. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm agree to disagree, but really the situation hasn't been dealt with.
Right.
So, I'm kind of, on the fence with that one. The only thing I would say with that, I've done that.
Yeah.
But I would say not to make that a habit.
No.
You know,
and
not to
we're
make that
saying the
habit.
same things. We're saying the same
Yeah.
things with that.
Yeah, not to make that a habit.
Yeah.
The elevation, I really like that. Sometimes it
Mhm.
requires you to bring somebody else in that
Mhm.
has nothing to do with the situation, that
Right.
has no favorites, and can be very open and honest about their thoughts, and really just give you maybe a different perspective.
Right.
Maybe give every party involved just a different perspective, just a fresh perspective. Sometimes that's good.
Yeah.
You hear something from somebody who has no history, that doesn't know anything about anything, can come in and be like, well, what about such and such and such and such? You're like,
Right.
We're talking for an hour, and we never even thought about that. So
Right.
it kind of gives you an aha moment.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes that really helps. The walking away, I think that, again, that if you're in a situation where you can sense that there's some things that might go to a level that's going to be really ugly, you may say, well, you know what, let's time out. Let's take a break. Let's go get soda. Let's walk away. Let's clear our heads, and then maybe we can come back. But I think that if you walk away, you want to make sure that you do come back at some point in time, because otherwise it's just going to dwizzle out. The underlying effects are going to be there.
Exactly. And it's going to keep repeating itself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to continue to roll on like a tumbleweed. But there are times, if you're in a situation where your life is in danger, or it's some type of a financial hardship, you completely being drained and those kind of things, and it's time to really make a choice to whether or not there's the relationship you need to be in altogether.
Yeah, I totally agree about that. Sometimes you may be in positions where conflict resolution isn't going to be the answer for the day, that day, of course, you always want to continue to try to do the best you can to resolve your situation and your problems. That's what makes the world go round. You can't fight your way through conflict in the sense that that's all you're doing is fighting. I mean, then you're not resolving anything, you're just not. But I do think that you do need to also look at having some fail-safe ways to protect yourselves, whether it's emotionally protect yourself or physically, depending on whatever the situation is. And sometimes you just have to come together. We're in some very heated times right now. And so, I think that I would rather see, if you can't get yourself together right now with someone, I'd rather you just go your separate corners and then come back, because the escalation of the drama associated with that can get out of hand so quickly.
Oh yeah.
If you're not, able to come together and even just be in a moment of like, okay, look, let's just, throw the flag, the white flag, if you will, and say, okay, look, all right, I'm putting my defenses down. You put yours down. Let's sit here, have a conversation, and be done with it. And just because you don't agree with someone doesn't make them a bad person, and it doesn't, and vice versa, So yeah, it's just, I tell you, we could teach the world, couldn't we? And the thing is, a lot of people know these things, but they sometimes forget or just choose to have, short-term memory when it comes to that. Or if they're short-circuiting a lot. Stay away from those people too. They mean you no good. But yeah, like but yeah, it's just I think this is a helpful conversation for sure. I think it's one of those ones that are really good in reflecting how we handle things. And, maybe you might be in a space right now that you are dealing with conflict resolution and or the approaching of it, or wanting to be able to do it. And, hopefully today's conversation gives you, some opportunities for helping you along that way. It's really important, to saving relationships, to saving those types that belong in your life, and those relationships that you want to save. That are healthy for you, of course, really make an effort, and then obviously the person has to reciprocate that with you. So yeah, I think that's all I have on this topic. How about you, Mia?
I think that's it for today.
Yeah. And that's it. We are out of here. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for being with us and just hanging out with us. I feel so good in this moment, because I'm telling you, when I got on here, I was like, but there is a sense of like uplift when I come on here and hang out with you guys. So, and of course, me and my girl hanging out is always a wonderful thing. It's a treat for me. So I look forward to this, and I hope you guys are just enjoying these conversations too. And I hope you're finding some help in that. And so definitely share, have these conversations with your own family members and friends. Pass these things around to people that you feel may need some assistance in that, some help in that. Look, we are in what I say, this life together. So you might as well help each other out, because what else do you have to do besides run around and raise mayhem, which all of us are not having it. So, let's help each other out. I mean, really. It's much better, right? Much better existence if we do that. So again, thank you so much for being a part of today's episode, Mia. I really appreciate it. And thank you, community. As always, we wish you to have a blessed week, and, hoping that all things work for your greater good. Get your rest as well, because we're approaching on the weekend. Take some time for yourself. I'm going to try to do a little bit of that myself. But yeah, just make sure that you take care of yourself and take care of those around you, and start resolving those conflicts, because life is too short. I'm out of here. So what about you, Mia?
Yes, I'm out of here too.
All right. So peace. We'll see y'all later. Bye.